So let's start with these two new therapies. We've had so much news around the world in the last week about the COVID-19 vaccine produced by Pfizer, the emergency use approval by the FDA, and then the first shots administering it here in the United States. Governor Andrew Cuomo said yesterday that this is the weapon that will win the war. But there are other lesser known weapons in this war, and among them are the therapeutic drugs that Eli Lilly has been developing that I think people know less about. So let's begin with those. Two of your therapies have received FDA emergency use authorization: an anti-inflammatory arthritis drug, baricitinib, and a synthetic coronavirus antibody drug, Bamlanivimab. And forgive my
It's a hard one.
botching the pronunciations, but explain if you would for your non-scientist host and for our audience what these drugs are and what they do for COVID patients.
Absolutely. Well, I do think this is a moment for some optimism that we're at the beginning of the end for this pandemic, not just for the vaccine reasons you mentioned, but because medicines are emerging and becoming more widely available. So at the beginning, if we go back to February, the industry and our company, Lilly, worked on three basic pathways to make a difference. One is to repurpose medicines we already have against COVID-19, see if they're effective. Baricitinib, or its trade name is Olumiant, it's sold as a rheumatoid arthritis drug in the US, is such an example where combined with another medicine from Gilead called remdesivir, it appears to allow people to leave the hospital early, and particularly those who are on oxygen and more advanced. That's so important because today there's 100,000 people in the hospital with COVID-19. Beds are filling up and in some localities full. And discharging from the hospital is obviously a very positive indicator for survival. So that's an important advance. We developed that with the NIH and the other company, Gilead, and that's available now, widely available. There's no constraints. Doctors are using it around the country. The second strategy was to develop new medicines to attack COVID-19. And here's where the synthetic antibody, which is a complicated name that a lot of people have fun with, called Bamlanivimab. You can just call it the Lilly antibody if you are sick and interested in finding out more about it. This strategy basically takes a turbocharged version of what your body does by itself when you first become infected. When you first become infected, your body notices the virus is different and it mounts an antibody response against it. We've isolated antibodies from survivors of COVID-19 and taken the very best one, the most potent and effective, and we turn it into a medicine by engineering it, and then we make it in factories at huge scale. This is a relative of the idea of plasma, if viewers are familiar with that strategy, where you take the whole blood plasma from survivors, only it's much more potent, and we can make more of it because we don't rely on donors. We just make it in tanks. And so that received approval here this fall, and to date we've shipped over 250,000 doses around the country, and many of those have been dispensed, and it's proven to reduce the risk of going to the hospital if you're early in the disease by 70 to 80%. So we're directing that at those over 65 and with pre-existing conditions.